So we're doesn't look like we're able to go live on Facebook right now for whatever reason. Every time I click go live, it does this funny little black screen thing. And so I just tried a couple times. So we're going to encourage people on Facebook to hopefully come over to Zoom. But I think what we should do is get started. So my apologies to everybody who has been watching and been waiting. We're going to get going on this Paso Wine Zoom Hangout. I'm Chris, I'm with the Paso Wine Alliance. Thanks again for tuning in with us. This is our third installment of this kind of fun, non-scripted hangout and talk about a subject. We throw something out there and kind of see where it goes. Today, for our guests on the call today is Dorothy Schuler with Bodegas Paso Robles. We've got Jeff Strekas, he's with Onyx Wines, and Eric Ogorsolka with Zenaida Cellars. Our topic is kind of fun. I'm calling it Cellar Mates. And we're calling it that because one of the things that happens in wine country is something basically called kind of bunking up, if you will, with other winemakers within one single roof. It has a technical name, Jeff or Eric, if you want to use that term.
I kind of like the sleepover party description. Made it sound like
bunking
in
up.
a hot tub.
Yeah.
Bunking up. It's called custom crush,
bunking
right? We call it custom crush, but that just is so like technical, kind of, you know.
But so much more than crush.
Proprietorships.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's basically what the premise of our show is today. And I want to start with Eric, because Eric actually, why we have Eric on here and then why the others are on is because both brands, Bodegas and Onyx for that matter, got a chance to start their winemaking, or at least for a while, be winemaking under Eric's roof at Zenaida Cellars. And then eventually, whether you moved out because you were expanding or whatever, but this is kind of the way a lot of wine brands start in some way, shape, form, or another. And kind of throwing it out there as to, you know, why? Is it economically feasible? Is it just like, it's the place where you start, where you grow? Not everybody necessarily does that. And then also, not everybody actually decides to build a winery and share their roof. Eric, you did, and talk a little bit about when you got started and kind of how this came to be.
Boy, was that a mistake. No, just kidding. I started Zenaida in 1998, and we opened the winery close after that in the year 2000, just about. And I soon realized that it was, I wasn't taking up all the space. There was a lot of space there and a lot of equipment that was only being used when I wanted to use it. And I figured that why not share some of that stuff? And I did have some friends that were asking. It's like they knew I was building and gonna have this this facility, and they said, hey, you know, can I bring some barrels over? Can I crush some fruit there? And at first I'm like, no. It's, you know, I didn't want to deal with it. Eventually I wanted some help, just like with roommates, you know, you want help with the rent, and that bill comes every month, and it's nice to share that with a few other people. So I started slowly bringing some people in, and I think at first it wasn't like, I'm going to do custom crush and this is how we're going to do it. It was more like a barter system. Even Dorothy was one of my first clients, but before her, we had I had some folks in, and it was just, hey, you know what? You help me crush this fruit, and then you can use the machine when I'm done, and that kind of stuff. And it kind of grew from that.
Sorry, we're obviously we're having. We had a little surprise guest there. Jen from our office is coming on, trying to figure out how we can get us live. So Jen, come back on, turn your camera off, and try to figure that one out. Thanks. Shoot.
Like crushed a ton for 6 gallons of milk or something, or how does that go?
I think my first barter was with, you probably heard of DeBost Family Winery, with their son Jake was starting the brand, and he was making wine for himself and for eventually later his family. But he had a brand called Full Circle with he had with his friend Ryan Ralston, who's he's still out there somewhere. I know, cruising around. I see him once in a while. But they none of us had any money really, so I didn't want an employee, couldn't afford one, but he needed to process fruit, and I needed someone to help me process mine. So he would come and help me clean tanks and clean equipment and process the fruit and drive the forklift, whatever needed to happen. And then he could use the machines when I was done. So when I was all done and cleaned up, or when I was done, he hopped on, and then he cleaned up, which was awesome for me. I could do something else. So that's how it started. I think as all situations go, we kind of evolved into contracts because something would happen. You know, there would be like, oh God, what the hell went on here last night? You know, I'd get here in the morning and it would just, you know, like I said, it would be a free for all. And so you have to kind of lock it down and make a rule. And so I'd be like, well, okay, let's have all the fruit show up before, 10 PM. And so we're not doing fruit all night, or, 2 o'clock in the morning kind of stuff, just starting the press up, trying to avoid that kind of thing.
That is one of the cool concepts, I think. Anytime you're looking at a custom crush contract, if you see a rule that seems sort of out of place or just really strange, it's probably unofficially named after someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I have almost my whole, half of my contract, I think I stole from you, Jeff. And then the other half, where was that? It was all like you said, it was from people making mistakes or things would happen and be like, oh, we got to put that in the contract. Can't have that kind of thing going on. So, yeah, it looks like an official, like a contract now. Like a lawyer actually wrote it, but it's hodgepodge.
Trial and error, basically.
Yeah.
So offline, Dorothy, you had said something about how these types of situations work really well when people are kind of like-minded in their cleanliness.
Well, I think Jeff and Eric and I were all very neat, organized. Sort of, you get the tool, you use the tool, you put the tool back from whence it came, and it's in good shape. We have worked with a lot of people out there that either get the tool out and don't think they have to put it back, so they expect us to take care of it for them, or other people who are so filthy, it would make your skin crawl. Their clothes were filthy. We're not naming names. Their clothes were filthy. They left a trail behind them.
Well, I think as any good chef, and I am by no means a good chef, would say, the mise en place, everything in its place style definitely works on a production area and definitely in winemaking just as much as in the kitchen. And I'm as guilty as anyone. I recall a couple times when Eric hid punch down tools because I kept leaving them not in the right spot. So I will by no means claim to be the perfect roommate in that sense. But I think all three of us here absolutely recognize the importance of cleanliness, making sure everything is accessible when everyone else needs it, not just when you need it. And the best compliment I've ever, or the one I took most to heart anyways, was when Alan Kinney from Cali Paso came to our facility for an industry event and just told myself and Drew how clean the facility was. It was,
Well, Alan Kinney appreciates that stuff, so he really does.
High praise for sure.
Yeah, it still has that new car smell.
After 5 years, I'll take that.
You have a few clients now over there, right, Jeff?
We're up around 20 right now. Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm having one of them.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what everyone else is having, but this little seashell's pretty good.
So
Great vineyard.
I'm drinking one of mine, the Wanderlust. That one has a little bit of fruit from Jeff's vineyard, some Mourvedre that we pull out of there. I make a couple wines from his vineyard. Make a white as well with some Grenache Blanc. So.
And I'm having an Albarino from the second Albarino vineyard in the country, which was planted by Alan Kinney. down in San Luis.
Wow.
So I don't know if you can see it, but I'm still buying that fruit. So I'm happy with it.
I went and pulled out a wine that we made at Eric's facility. So 2014 Crux, a GSM, all the fruit from our estate here, and all processed with love and care through the line. And who was your interns that year? It was 2014 Annie's first year?
I don't remember. It's did you say Annie?
Was it? Or
yeah,
your still tasting room, and it was what was the other name?
Oh, the young Asian woman.
Oh, Sally. There was
Sally.
So Cal Poly is a good source. We've been pulling VIT students out of Cal Poly for internships here for a few years, and Sally was one. She moved on and got a job at Justin. Was working in the lab out there. And then 2014, I tried to go back. I had everybody has a nickname. You're not supposed to do that. It's a no-no. I guess I was told by the HR department. So no more nicknames. But everybody had a nickname. By
HR department, do you mean Jill?
Yeah.
No nicknames.
Exactly. Chris knows my wife Jill. She's the HR department. She's good at it. So I let her do it. I'm not good at it, obviously. I always say the wrong. I'm foot in mouth guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys, there are some things that happen in Custom Crush that I think is kind of interesting is that there's a lot of things that can be learned from one another. There's probably things that you might glean off each other, maybe even collaborate on. And there's probably even some best practice that's because you learn what not to do. Are there specific things that you think you, by working together, learned and have taken on into the future? And then maybe even talk a little bit about some instances where you guys have been able to bring other ideas and other thoughts into the environment.
Well, Eric was a great teacher for me. Alan Kinney first taught me how to make wine. And then Eric really expanded on my knowledge base. And I really, really want to thank him for that. But it was also fun working out at Eric's, by the way. We can't put aside the fun part. We did have fun.
You gotta have fun. We
did have fun, but I was using different grapes than most people. And I think that was what I brought to the team out there. Was the strange variety of grapes I used. I also brought in some grapes from Napa Valley, which I think we all agree was the best wine I've ever made. Unfortunately, those grapes have been pulled out.
This is a Paso Robles.
I understand. But still, but it was the only place you could get those grapes. I now buy them here, Chris. I just want you to know that.
You buy Napa grapes here? What?
No, the same grapes.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So I have a story about those Napa grapes. So Dorothy started buying this fruit, and I think the first year it came down and everything was fine. The second year, I think Napa was under quarantine from the sharpshooter.
Grapevine moth.
Yeah, so they were trying to quarantine that thing and not let anything from Napa down to Paso because we didn't have it in Paso apparently. So they told us we had to process the fruit. We had to collect all the stems from the fruit, all the skins. Was it skins from the pressings? But
everything, Eric.
Everything in garbage bags, and then have it inspected, and then take it to the dump. So we rigged our crusher, the stemmer, with these trash bags in a bucket, and when it's the last thing you want to do when you're processing is try to rig some new system in. And so we had these bags that weighed, when they were full, probably 1,000 pounds. But, just dealing with all of that extra, there's stems and juice and grapes and not one sharpshooter probably, but.
No, it was the grapevine moth, not the sharpshooter.
Oh,
grapevine
okay,
moth.
yeah, there you go. But yeah, so we did that for a couple of years in a row. And so every time that truck would show up, or Dorothy would come with that fruit, we would always go, oh, no.
Those heavy duty black bags. Yeah.
But the fruit was good. So, you know, like you said, Dorothy, we made it fun and got through it. So I think one of the things that, as far as things I learned from having all these people sharing my space was, and there was a lot of collaboration. I think you get to see what everybody's using. So like with Jeff, you know, I got to see you do different yeast trials maybe. I get to see how that worked out, maybe how he maybe used a yeast with a fruit that I had never made the combo before. There's other clients that maybe put a lot of emphasis on additives and all the stuff that you would add to it, like tannins and things that maybe that nobody else was using. And so you kind of see the you know, the benefits or maybe the perceived benefit of what that might have been. But, you know, so you get to do all that stuff without actually having to spend the money and do it and run all those experiments yourself. There's like, you know, there's 5 or 6 experiments going on every single day.
I think for me, I learned so much from everyone I was fortunate enough to be around when I started out down here. But the most important lesson I'd say I took was really less on technical winemaking, more on functional winemaking. And it's really the question of how to run a facility. Because, you know, when I did my schooling up at Davis, no one's there teaching you how to run your own glycol plumbing and how to fix things when they break. And what are the really useful pieces of equipment to keep around for fixing barrels and having just a, you know, barrel spile plugging kit ready to go. You know, how to set up different types of just even water hoses, where to keep your tools, and just all those super incredibly important logistical things that I still use on a daily basis that no one has ever put in any kind of textbook.
Right. I think Davis, that may be the biggest complaint from people who went to Davis. I went to Davis. You know, it was a lot of theory and books and the Fresno State guys got all the practical knowledge. So a lot of those guys come out of the school knowing, you know, how to hook a hose up to a pump, where you get a Davis grad and they're just like, huh? You know, clamp? What?
And what do Cal Poly guys get?
Cal Poly. Well, you know, Cal Poly didn't have the VIT program when we were coming through. So
yeah. We've talked a little bit about some of the things that you've gleaned and brought into the environment. What about what not to do? There's probably stories about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Make sure you got your financial terms worked out well in advance, right, Eric?
I would say if there's one rule that probably got named after me at Zenaida, it was the closing time rule and the pointed out enforcement of, you know, you don't stop working at X time. It's you have everything put away, you're done, you're in your car and zipping out of the driveway because, you know, there's a lot of other stuff that needs to happen and not everyone wants to sit around for someone else who gets a wild hair and decides to work until 10 p.m.
It happens. I mean, during harvest it happens all the time, but
God.
The rest of, when you're not when fruit's not being delivered, man, you gotta take that chance and get out of there when you can. So if he's like, look, everybody clean up, let's get out of here. But the rest of the year when you're doing barrel work and just dinking around, Eric wants to go home. I don't want to wait for you. Get your stuff done, get out of here. Go home.
In life, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's such challenges too with it. I mean, you're all kind of working together. You've got different things that you're doing because you have different programs, of course. How do you coordinate? How in the world do you manage working around each other?
Eric has really good rules about certain things. And I'm in a new facility now, and they don't seem to have any rules about that make sense to me. But Eric made sure he knew when our fruit was coming in. And I would always talk to him first. I say, oh, Eric, I can pick this here and there. What's your schedule like? And he kept track of all that very nicely on a small whiteboard so we could all see it. No fancy sheets or anything. And he really was on top of it that way. It was required but on the casual side. Where
Yeah.
I am now, people will show up with 10 tons of fruit and nobody knows they're coming in.
Well, see, that kind of stuff used to happen all the time. And that was born out of necessity. So, we had that was written down as one of my stories. You have, you cleaning up and you're getting ready to go home and a truck pulls in with like 20 tons of fruit. You're like, what? And he's looking for somebody who's not even there. I don't know if you remember when Lee Legre pulled in with all this Tempranillo that he'd picked for Charlie. And,
oh yes, I do remember.
We're all looking at each other like, who is that? What's going on? And it's like, okay, now let's get a whiteboard and figure this out. We got to know, when's it coming? How much is coming? Where's it coming from? Is it going to be weighed? What, and so that kind of stuff just happens. I don't think of myself as a rule maker. I guess I was, but it's just things happen. So you got to be like, okay, here we go. Another rule.
I think the big thing is to have the scheduling all run through a single person, and in the ideal scenario, all of the other clients in the custom crush, view that person as, the godfather of the custom crush or rule maker, whatever title you want to use. And I think it worked because, we would ask Eric for what we wanted, but it was always a genuine ask. It would be, I'm thinking of doing this at this time. Is that possible? And you'd say yes or no.
Yeah. There was a lot of yeses early in harvest, and then it got to be more like, as the schedule got compacted, it was a lot more no's or maybes yeah, it was.
Well, that's when you start ending each email request by saying, and I'll be dropping off a case of beer at 4:30.
That always helps to lube the white, lube them, get Eric greased so you can say yes to my 12 coming in late.
So there's two different basic concepts, though, I guess you could say. Maybe there's more on custom crush. It's one thing is having a roof where multiple winemakers are all working under, and that's mostly what we've been talking about. But then there's also the concept where a brand is basically making wine for clients, and those clients maybe not step foot in the facility all that often. And talk a little bit about that difference, Jeff.
Sure. I think everything in really not just winemaking and contracts, but pretty much any phase of business, it's all as productive as it can be, defined based on everyone just genuinely explaining expectations to each other. And as it works within the business that we run now, because once Onyx started its own facility and left Zenaida, we actually started our own custom crush business to fill space as well. And ultimately, we just tell our clients we offer a few different sets of services. There's, I have clients who maybe I ferment for, but they own their own facility somewhere else. And the second we're done fermenting and you don't need all the big, crazy, heavy investiture equipment, then maybe we press that out into their vessels and they drive away with it and do all their own barrel work and bottling. I have other clients who they're what I'd call full service, and we see everything or oversee everything from when the fruit is delivered to when it leaves in bottles and cases after bottling. And then the other level that you're referring to is we do also offer custom winemaking services, which are where, we, instead of just acting as the hands of, the brand's winemaker, we actually offer the consulting services to determine, well, what kind of wine are you trying to make? Have you considered fruit from this region or this region? Let's introduce you to some vineyard managers who might be able to supply that. And, that goes all the way into winemaking style, what type of oak you're using, yeast, what type of processing equipment, all that sort of thing. And even potentially further into consulting on tasting rooms and sales and that sort of thing.
So what about, are your favorite clients those who used to be home winemakers?
That's like asking someone who their favorite kid is, which means there's never a safe answer to give in that scenario.
Well, I've seen a lot of people trying to go from being a home winemaker to making like, bringing in 50 tons. It's something to watch.
My favorite clients, I can say after having been through 5 years of this, not that that's that long in the scheme of things, it's folks who create their protocols ahead of time and give them to you early so you can just train your whole team what's expected and how to roll with that fruit in those barrels. Because a lot of people do tend to make decisions on the fly, which makes it a lot more difficult to adapt to when you're also trying to juggle production for 18, 19 other brands.
Well, sometimes that's necessary. This year I got some Tempranillo in that I was going to make into Tempranillo. Well, it ended up being rosé because there was nothing else I could do with it.
Oh,
and
wow.
sometimes those things happen.
Yeah, I think that whether a client is coming in as a professional level with their own, they've got a brand that they're out there selling and established versus the home winemaker trying to ramp up maybe. The biggest thing to me is, do they have goals and do they know where they're going? What are you trying to do and where are you trying to get to? And that helps me a lot to know, to help them and to get them there. But, both of those types of clients are everybody's out there trying to do it. And my view was that I'm just trying to help them get there. So.
And I think the other answer I'll put out there in case there happens to be folks watching who are, looking to get into making wine and doing custom crush someday, I would say the one thing Eric will absolutely agree with me on as to who's your favorite client. Well, who pays on time?
Yeah.
As with any business, you can never forget that aspect.
That is always a plus, and when you're not having to chase that down, that's awesome, and those guys are much appreciated.
How influential are you guys on each other's style at some point? Oh, sorry. I think
you're always influenced by the people you work with. And even if you don't actively realize that and act on it, it always happens even subconsciously. I think just it happens in weird ways even. It's when you're looking at fruit from a new vineyard and suddenly you're like, oh, wait a minute, I heard Eric talking about this, or I know Dorothy brought in fruit from here and she had this experience and it was really good. It adds that extra level of validity. I think being around folks like Dorothy and Eric who are just open to ideas and try different stuff every year and, don't always do it exactly the same way and don't have just a one formula recipe. You always learn if you're paying attention and just seeing what's done out there.
Yeah, a little bit. I would maybe compare it to, you ever watched a bunch of kindergartners play soccer?
The Blob?
Just a little bit of that going on. I've noticed with when you got a winery full of clients and maybe some of them are home winemakers and here comes, someone like Jeff who's made wine and he's there doing something that none of them had seen anybody do before. All of a sudden it's like, hey, did you see what Jeff just did? That's awesome. I'm going to try that too. Really? I'm going to do it too. And pretty soon everybody's like, Jeff sprinkled something on his fruit. And pretty soon all the other boxes in there will have that same thing on the top. So I always thought that was kind of hilarious, but how else are you going to learn? And that's part of having that everybody kind of like helping each other out and learning from each other. So there is a little bit of that going on, but that's all part of it, and that's how you learn. And if it works for you, do it. If you can't tell if it did anything, then don't spend the money.
Well, it's kind of fun where I am now. There's a lot of people out there, but most of them don't show up. So I let my Morved go native totally, and they were shocked. I was going to let this go native. And they said, well, blah, blah, blah. I said, hey, it's the end of the year. There's so much yeast floating around in here. Why bother to spend money on yeast? I know the vineyard. let it go native. And they were just amazed. And then I didn't add anything for mallow either. They were amazed. And it turns out it's the young kid who works out there. It's his favorite wine of the year. He said, I never would have thought a native wine would be my favorite. We should do more native wines. So it's just, it's something I learned from Eric. There's a lot of yeast floating out there, Dorothy.
Yeah, there's my vineyard's probably full of like D254 or something, but I think that's my wild yeast. I think that my number of wild yeast fermentation definitely goes up as we get closer to the end of harvest. I think you get tired, you're worn out. That one more trip down, it's like, oh, I'm out of yeast. I don't know. It's like, well, I think it'll be okay. It seems good. I think that vineyard's, I like, what's going on out there. I'm just gonna let it ride. And I think more of that happens as you get towards the end of the year. I don't know about you, Jeff, but that's my sentiment.
Oh, I laugh because there's the, let's let it ride and go native spoken part. And then the reality is, in different facilities too, it's like sometimes I've very much intentionally with fermentations of my own done I'm not going to sterilize this punch down tool between pump overs and drip a few milliliters from this active ferment into this inactive one. And it's just a different form of inoculating with a live culture. And I mean, you can talk about the genetic difference of getting, is it really the same strain when it's gone enough generations to cover 2 full fermentations? Maybe not, but it's a strong finisher and it's going to make it through.
Yeah, I don't know. I think some people may have never seen the inside of a cellar like what we're used to on a small scale, and a lot of us do fermentations in like 200-gallon open top fermenters. So it's completely open on there's no lid or anything. It's not in a tank. It's fermenting in these boxes, and you have a wild fermentation going on next to a full-on commercially produced yeast, and along comes your Cal Poly intern with this punch down tool, and punching that one down too, and oh well, it's like, okay, who knows what that is? It could be a mix of Dorothy's yeast on that side, Jeff's yeast on this side, Eric's over here, and it turns out good. I don't know how wild things are. I mean, to be wild, I think you'd have to have your own room and really lock it down and be scientific about it. And
we've played around.
Remember that 10 tons, Eric, we had come in from Dirty Rod, and it was fermenting, and as it came off the reefer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bubbling away there.
So that's one thing. You pay for a refrigerated truck, not this kind of reefer. The other refrigerated truck would extra. Thank you, Jeff. You'd pay for this truck, and it would show up, and the refrigeration wouldn't even be on. It'd be 110 in the truck. It's like 98 outside the truck, and the fruit comes off
the truck, not the 5 gallons of gas.
Whoa!
But his vineyard dirty and the fruit, but it always made really, really good wine. I don't buy it anymore. He's tripled his price.
Well,
and I don't want it. It's not from Paso, but boy, did it make good wine.
Pretty grapes don't always make pretty wine. So
Right.
Can't judge a book by its cover. I've made some awesome wines off of vineyards that are, the fruit comes in. The vineyards are great. The fruit comes in and it looks like garbage, and you tell yourself, how am I going to do anything with this? I just spent all this money, and you're ready to pull the plug on it. But lo and behold, after it's been in the barrel and finished wine, it's good. It's nice, and it's worth it. So you can't always judge a book by its cover when it comes to vineyards and fruit, I think.
No, you cannot.
Now, when you're handling these multiple fermentations between all of you ever get a point where you're basically running out of space? I mean, they're off.
2005, I have a picture all the way down, all the way outside. We had tents set up outside, and then around the corner and down the driveway. And it was amazing, of course. I mean, 2005, great year, a lot of fruit.
So Dorothy's talking about our facility in the back. We have our crush pad. And when the inside of the building would fill up, usually, at the apex of harvest, somewhere in the middle of October somewhere. We had went down and bought these cheapy carport things, tents with the metal poles, and we set them up outside, and we were putting all of our T-bins under there, and then that filled up. And so we kept moving around the oak tree that's in the back, and we had it going all the way around the oak tree and all the way down the driveway. And then about noon or 1 o'clock, I'd go out there with my forklift because the shade had moved, and we'd go and we'd move everything back up around the other side of the tree, so that as the shade moved around, we would have our ferments wouldn't be just sitting out in the sun. And I actually looked at that picture yesterday, Dorothy, that book that you gave me, and I can't even believe it. There's no way I would make wine like that anymore. But
it was a good year. We all made great wine, and Robert Parker had to say good year after he said it was a bad year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you use what you got, and that's, I think, been my motto. My whole history career is I use what I have and do the best you can with it, and it's usually enough and more than enough a lot of times.
Well, I remember when I started out with you, you had that little wooden hopper. I think you got it from Ken Volk, right? And you had that little wooden hopper, and that was the year that they loaned you the destemmer. Remember? And we were crushing right into bins under there, and you push it in, and I'd be picking out of the bins. And there was no sorting table. There was nothing. Just.
So I think
those are the great years where you can get someone to loan you a piece of equipment as a demo unit for the entire harvest.
Okay, so this is the real story right here. We weren't. I guess it was loaned. It was. It originally. I spent a little time working for Ken Volk at Wild Horse, and at that time we had this piece of machinery that was a prototype of a destemmer that was made up in Napa, and they were putting them together. And I think Ken Volk got the first one. And this is the thing that we called it the Beast. And it looked like it would eat your arms and legs if you got too close. And we crushed hundreds of tons through this thing. And then one day Ken upgraded, and this thing went into the boneyard in the back of the winery, and it just sat there. And this is, I think I called Scott Welcher back in the day and said, "Hey, Scotty, is the Beast still in the back? Is it in the boneyard?" He's like, "Yeah, you want it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, dude, I want it." So I went over there and I grabbed it, and I'm like, "How much you guys want for this thing?" And he's like, "I don't know. We'll work it out later." And I'd call him the next year. "Hey, did you guys figure out a price?" "Oh, no, I forgot to ask Kenny about it." And lo and behold, Kenny goes and sells the winery, and I still hang on to this thing. But, okay, well, oops, I guess it's mine. So,
wow,
it was on loan, and I tried to pay for it, but like I said, we didn't have a lot of money when we first started out, and that's what you do. You kind of you find things. We had a lot of used equipment. We made things if we couldn't find it. I had a hopper made out of plywood with linoleum on it for 1 year, and hey, it worked great. But it's a kind of a disposable kind of thing. So you don't want to use that again next year. I eventually upgraded. Now it's all pretty stainless out there now. But
now it's cardboard with Armor All on it.
I am a professional.
Now you got a great sorting table, Eric.
Yeah, our system.
Best I've seen. I assume, Jeff, you have the same one.
No, we're using some different destemming equipment that kind of has built-in sorting now. We do have a table we can slide underneath for extra sorting, but we focus more so on pre-destemming sorting of clusters to really get the stuff we don't want out of there. But one story I did want to throw out to everyone, it's really, everyone has that moment that they don't realize when it happened, but then they look back and they're like, oh, that's where the seed was planted. And the first time I ever considered the idea of running a custom crush was actually my first year working out of Zenaida, when Eric told me the story of the earthquake, which, was that when? Or was it
2003? Yeah.
2003. Oh gosh, I'm way off. I was a youngin' then, but Eric basically told me that if there was ever another earthquake that, knocked out the power and, flooded the winery and he had to fish out barrels with a forklift from 15 feet in the air, that he was just saying, screw it, I'm done, walking away and handing me the keys. And I was like, could I do that? Could I make that work? I'm like, I think I'd probably kill myself, but here I am now, 8 years later and making it happen.
Yep. Well, so Jeff is a graduate of Zenaida University, right there.
How many more graduates do you have of Zenaida University?
Well, I made a list. So Dorothy told me it was a lot yesterday when we were talking, and I thought, I can have a few, and not that many. I started making a list, and I got a whole page of people. And I mean, there's Dorothy's on there, Bodegas, Assumption Ridge, Crooked Road, which is Judy Starr, Ford family, Lene Coloto, Matt was here for a while, Alto Pomar, DeBose family, Aaron Wines, Stage Left, Full Circle, Trey Gotti, Newland Hastings was here, Onyx, a couple restaurants, Penman Springs Winery, Carl McCaslin was here, The Backyard, Salisbury, I don't know if you know John Salisbury, he had the schoolhouse down there by Avila Beach. He was made Pinot for him for a while.
I remember that year he hurt himself doing punch downs, right?
His winemaker was maybe a little past the age where I felt comfortable with him being up on but he wanted to do it, so I'm like, try it. He joined the Purple Sock Club that day and decided maybe it wasn't for him. Purple Sock is when you follow it. So, but yeah, Nell, Tyler Russell, he worked for me for a long time, made his wine here. Record Family, which is now with Jeff. Well, a couple of my clients moved over with Jeff. So as I fledged them or booted them out because of needing more room.
The proverbial kicking them out of the nest.
Yeah. So Jeff was kind enough to take them, and I felt good sending him over there because I knew he'd take good care of them.
Right on. That's a good list. That's a healthy list of people. I didn't hear someone though that I think once had a fun forklift incident there too, though.
Oh, I said Aaron Wines. Yeah.
Oh, you did.
Well, now we know who it is.
I thought you didn't say it. You didn't need to say it.
We didn't tell the story. I don't. Aaron is a friend of mine, and I know he felt terrible, but things happen, and I think after it happened. I told him that he's like, man, I feel like this is really kind of hurt our relationship and our friendship. And I'm like, you know what, man, I'm really mad at you right now. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be mad at you for a long time, but eventually I'll get over it, and it took me about 1.5 years. And once the remodel was finished, I came around and now I can laugh about it, obviously. Right. So
it did change the rules. We weren't all allowed to use the forklift after that one.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, there we go. Now it's one more thing Eric has to put on his list. And it had to be a Zenaida employee on the forklift. If you wanted barrels moved, now you have to ask one of us to do it for you. So, I mean, it added to my things to do. I didn't really want to do that because now everybody's like, Eric, hey, Eric, come do this. And I was like, good Lord. So
I feel like we kind of buried the lead on this one, though. I would like to tell the audience, because they're probably picturing all sorts of crazy stuff right now. And this is a good example of, it's not how hard you hit the ball in the baseball game, it's just where you hit it. This isn't like a whole forklift going through a wall. It's just about this much of the tip of the forklift hitting the one part of the drywall that happened to have a fire sprinkler pipe behind it.
Yeah, that was, we figured out just how much water would come out of a fire sprinkler if you happened to pop it off, and it's quite a bit.
It was by no means like a crazy reckless maneuver. It was just, really
I don't think it was a home run hit, as you would say, but more of like a line drive to the pitcher right in the nuts. That's more what it was like. Aaron is awesome, and he makes good wine, and he's a good friend. So
he's going to be on the show on Friday, actually. So we've got a different show on, and he'll be there. So
awesome.
Tune in.
You can tell some stories about me then, I'm sure.
All right, fun time, you guys. Thank you so much for being on today. Sorry for the technical difficulties that we started with earlier, but I really appreciate your time. Cheers. I should get a little bit more wine in my glass for that. But cheers, thanks for being on today. Happy Earth Day. We didn't theme this Earth Day, but you know what? We didn't need to. We didn't need to. But cheers.
Well, things are pretty clear around the world, so that's a good Earth Day.
That is. That's right. So right on. Well, everybody, we've recorded this. Go to pasowine.com to go back and check it out. We'll be doing another one of these, and we're going to figure out some of those little difficulties that we had with Facebook Live. But we're going to have another one of these on Friday, 3 o'clock. A whole new set of guests, Aaron Jackson from Aaron Wines, Clay Selkirk from Le Cuvier, sorry, and then Jeffrey Weisinger from Barbecue Wine or
Senior. Okay, Junior.
Yeah, we're going to do a little food pairing type of thing and talk about what wines they like to put with their, or what food they like to put with their wines. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this.
Thank you.
Great to see you guys
Next time.
again. I'll be well.
Nice to see you all.
Bye, everybody.
Right on. See you guys.
Bye, Eric.
Bye.